Lemurian souls. If you are a Lemurian soul, life has always felt tender before it felt structured. You sense the emotional field of the world before you understand its rules. You move through life through feeling, memory, and subtle resonance rather than strategy or force. Even when you appear calm on the surface, your inner world is rich, fluid. From early on, you carried a sense of quiet knowing, not intellectual certainty, but embodied remembrance. You feel when something is right or wrong without needing explanation. You trust tone more than words, energy more than logic, and because of this, you often feel out of sync with environments that value speed, control, or hardness. Your lived experience is one of emotional depth and intuitive connection. You form bonds easily, not through effort, but through presence. People feel safe with you, seen without being examined, held without being fixed. You carry a natural softness that invites others to lower their defenses. At the same time, this sensitivity makes the world feel loud. Conflict can feel physically painful. Harshness feels disorganizing. You may withdraw when environments become too sharp, too fast, or too demanding. Not because you are fragile, but because your system is designed for coherence rather than pressure. Lemurian souls often feel like they belong to a slower rhythm of life, one where connection precedes action, where meaning matters more than outcome. When life becomes overly structured or aggressive, you may feel as though something essential is being lost. You may have struggled to explain yourself growing up, why certain situations felt overwhelming when others seemed unaffected, why emotional undercurrents mattered more to you than visible success, why you needed time, softness, and safety to open rather than challenge to perform. This can create a sense of being misplaced, as if you arrived with a different operating system, one that prioritizes harmony, emotional truth, and energetic alignment over competition or efficiency. You may have learned to adapt outwardly while remaining inwardly distant, protecting your sensitivity from being overwhelmed. If this resonates, it is not imagination, it is recognition. Your depth was never meant to harden. It was meant to guide you through life in a different way. This video was created within the Starseed Soul Project, a system developed to bring clarity to inner patterns that are often misread as sensitivity, withdrawal, or passivity. It is not a belief system. It is a way to recognize how different inner architectures experience relationships, safety, and reality itself. For Lemurian souls, this recognition is essential because depth is often mistaken for weakness. The core relationship pain for this soul is emotional exposure without protection. You open through softness. You bond through shared feeling, trust, and vulnerability. You give access to your inner world early because connection feels natural and true. But not everyone knows how to enter gently. You often find yourself absorbing others' emotions, their tension, their unspoken grief, their unresolved inner noise. You feel it in your body before you understand it with your mind. And because you value harmony, you rarely push back. You adjust. You accommodate. You retreat inward to keep the connection calm. This creates a repeating relational destiny. You attract partners who are drawn to your peace, but bring chaos into it. People who feel safe with you, yet are not safe for you. They lean into your emotional field without realizing how much they are taking. Over time, this pattern leads to self-erasure, not sudden loss, but slow fading. You become less expressed, less embodied, less present, not because you disappear, but because you protect yourself by becoming smaller. You may stay in relationships where your needs are subtle and therefore ignored, where your boundaries are soft and therefore crossed, where your silence is mistaken for agreement. You may leave only when your inner world becomes too depleted to sustain itself. Many Lemurian souls confuse peace with safety. They tolerate emotional distance or subtle neglect because overt conflict feels worse. They would rather feel lonely than disrupted. Rather than choose confrontation, they choose quiet withdrawal. This is not a lack of strength. It is a relational, pattern formed around preserving inner harmony in environments that do not naturally support it. This pattern is not random. In the starseed soul system, relationships move through different frequencies, and not all connections are designed to be emotionally porous. Some bonds require clear edges to remain healthy. For Lemurian souls, this distinction is vital, because openness without containment leads to depletion rather than intimacy. You were not designed to absorb others in order to love them. You were designed to share presence, not carry emotional weight. Understanding this does not mean becoming guarded or distant. It means learning where compassion ends and self-protection begins. It means recognizing that harmony cannot exist if your inner world is constantly invaded. The same dynamic often appears in money and material life. Lemurian souls frequently struggle not because they lack ability, but because material systems feel harsh, rushed, or energetically incompatible. You may delay financial decisions to avoid stress. You may underprice yourself because asking for more feels disruptive. You may avoid structure because it feels cold or constricting. Money can feel energetically loud. Deadlines feel sharp. Competition feels disorganizing. You may associate material success with loss of softness, believing that to survive materially, you must harden emotionally. And so you remain half present in the physical world, never fully landing. This often results in instability. Income comes inconsistently. Support depends on others. Plans remain vague, not because you lack intelligence or discipline, but because grounding feels unsafe to your system. This creates an inner conflict around value and embodiment. You know you carry deep emotional wisdom, intuitive clarity, and relational depth, but you struggle to anchor that value into form, into clear boundaries, into pricing, into tangible presence. Part of you longs to feel held by life itself. Another part fears that structure will overwhelm your sensitivity, so you hover between worlds, emotionally rich, materially unrooted. Until this conflict is resolved, relationships and money will mirror the same lesson, where softness becomes self-neglect, where peace replaces truth, and where embodiment feels dangerous simply because it demands form. This is not a flaw in your nature. It is a call to create safety without shrinking yourself. The shadow point of the Lemurian soul is not fragility. It is the fear that asserting yourself will disrupt harmony. Deep inside, there is an avoided truth that boundaries feel unsafe, that saying no might fracture connection, that grounding yourself might introduce hardness into a world you experience as delicate. Because of this, you may withdraw instead of speak. You may tolerate discomfort quietly rather than introduce tension. You may feel responsible for maintaining emotional peace, even when it costs you presence and vitality. Not because you lack awareness, but because your system equates safety with softness. This shadow often hides behind serenity, behind patience, behind spiritual acceptance, but underneath it lives quiet depletion, a sense of being unseen because you are not fully expressed, a sense of floating near life rather than inhabiting it. The turning point for this soul comes when you realize that peace is not the absence of disturbance. It is the presence of truth held gently. You begin to understand that boundaries are not violence, that form does not destroy softness, that grounding can protect sensitivity rather than erase it. As this realization settles, your relationship to conflict changes. You stop retreating at the first sign of friction. You remain present. You speak even when your voice feels quiet. And you discover that true harmony includes structure. In its integrated expression, the Lemurian soul becomes a field of embodied calm, not withdrawn.